in the old days, we always said that e-commerce is an extension of offline. And now it's often the other way around, that the retail stores are an extension of what you can see online.
Many customers don't even realize they're talking to an AI bot.
Consumers are craving real life offline experiences. So they want to go out, they want to mingle, to socialize, and especially for high priced products, they want to really touch and feel the product.
How do you see personalization evolving, especially given the competition?
There's a strong trend towards one-to-one experiences. And also there's a very strong trend to not to talk about clients anymore, but talk about communities.
Hello and welcome to the EGN Podcast. Today we're on tour, recording this very special episode from Hamburg. Sitting next to me is Maria von Scheel-Plessen, an industry advisor who is also a strong advocate for female leadership. Maria and I will explore the recent evolution of e-commerce and omnichannel retail and talk about success factors and innovative strategies, be it useful tools or ways for brands to cater to diverse customer groups. Maria has absolutely fantastic ideas for your business. Maria, welcome to the show. It's very nice to have you here. We're on tour. It's a very special episode today. Normally we are in Berlin and we have a studio in Berlin. But yeah, now we're in Hamburg. So very nice to have you here. And I'll give you the floor to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Maria von Scheel-Plessen, and I'm the director for EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa for a luxury brand based in Milan. Apart from that, I also have several board mandates and like to focus my energy around mentorship, also really pushing already the next generation of leaders, especially also young females. And my background is very much centered around the tech industry. So I started off at Rocket Internet 10 years ago, based in Berlin, then in Singapore, heading marketing communications for Southeast Asia for Zalando, the Asian Zalando called Zalora. And then I went on to Amazon, to Montblanc, and now in the luxury industry since several years. And my key expertise is really around digital media in general, so all offline, online media channels. Then retail digitization, because a lot of what we do also, of course, strongly impacts the retail industry, because key of the revenue of the luxury industry is still generated via offline stores. And then also, and I think we're going to touch upon that in a bit as well, is the, let's say, new areas around AI, metaverse / Web3, what is happening there. So yeah, that's a bit about me and also my background.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. So much experience in one person. Although you look super young, you have a wealth of experience that you bring with you. And also super interesting about female leadership. We will touch upon that. We've had several leaders from several segments of e-commerce up until now. Very interesting to see your background, your international background, and also especially talking about not only e-commerce, but also omnichannel retail, including physical locations, how the interplay between physical locations and online channels work out. So let's start with maybe looking back on the last 2-3 years. I recently had a opening keynote at our conference, and I also presented a graphic of consumer behavior since 2020 and how it developed. We've had several crises and several disruptions, such as the inflation crisis, the corona crisis, and all these things. Maybe let's look back on the last couple of years and look at today. Where are we right now? How do you see the world of e-commerce?
Mm-hmm. So as you already said, like 10 years ago, e-commerce was, or maybe 15 years ago, was just about to get started, especially in the fashion scene and industry, and also the consumers became more confident to switch to e-commerce. We've seen this very much amongst millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha now coming in slightly. mostly with the credit cards of parents, but still they're coming. So yes, I think the adaptation has really increased. Now, in the recent years, and especially after the Corona or COVID boom we had for e-commerce shopping behavior, we see a bit of a downtrend. And this is for me due to the fact that consumers are craving real life offline experiences. So they want to go out, they want to mingle, to socialize, and especially for high price products, they want to really touch and feel the product. They want to have a very much one-to-one personalized shopping experience and also consultation. So this is something we also need to cater for more and more, especially when it comes to still being able to track. So in my area and what I oversee, it's key that I don't only look and measure online to online, but also online to offline. So this is really a key challenge also which has come more and more stronger in the past years, is to how to actually capture on what's happening offline into our online dashboards and attribution modeling.
Yeah. How do you do that?
Yeah. So
let's get right into it.
Yeah, so this is a year-long topic, I would say, and we could sit here for a few hours. But to keep it short, it on one side really is needed that you have the right, firstly, internal resources. So you need to have a team which consists of data analyst, marketing analyst, which many brands and industries didn't naturally have at this point of time a few years ago. It was very much branding orientated, PR orientated in the marketing segment. And now, finally, the mindset has changed and we have a higher focus on data-driven headcount. Then, secondly, for me, it's key that we focus on in-housing. So as much as I am a fan also of relying onto different tools and tactics and having the right partners to guide you, for me, it was always key to in-house the data collection and attribution process as much as possible, because I want to be independent as much as possible as well, and want to be ready for any industry changes or company performances in case any of the tools are not the latest state of the art anymore. We all know how hard it is to switch from one tool to the other. Yeah. It's really tough. So what I focused on is I started with marketing mix modeling, so very classic. I think many of us have done that in the past. Mm-hmm. Then I went into data-driven attribution, so away from the last click to data-driven attribution, meaning all channel touch points are being taken into account when you evaluate your marketing performance, and also the individual contribution of all channels. Yeah. And for this, I have different tools for offline data onboarding. Yeah. So I have offline transactions, I have store visits, I have time spent in store. The possibility of tracking depends on the different countries. So I oversee 37 countries. I was also previously in global roles. So it's the data accuracy and availability really depends on the different markets.
Legal regulations
exactly,
also. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not the same for all. And here it's key that this process is automized as much as possible, because you have a lot of data to capture, to digest, to analyze. First step is that it's data-driven attribution and not last click anymore. Yeah. Then you need to automate the processes to be able to have very much like a predictive buying analysis in the future. And this is how I went about it. So hiring the right headcount internally, onboarding different tools, although with the key goal to capture as much data to in-house and also automate as much as possible. Yeah. And on one side, I have the offline data capturing tools with which I track CRM, email address, for example, WeChat, user ID, store traffic, etc., etc. And at the same time, I have all the online tracking available as well. So I look at the online data, offline data, combine the two, and by that also have an attribution modeling in place, which runs on an always-on basis.
Yeah. Sounds excellent, but I can also imagine that you were in your specific role overseeing many, many markets, over 30 markets. You might have the luxury for in-housing, whereas so many other companies out there might not have the same situation. Do you have tips for them where to start and to get into this path maybe like start simple. What are your key takeaways, especially for the beginners?
So then I would suggest again typical marketing mix modeling. So this you can do pretty much as a first step, just to know. Maybe you already know, but if you don't, to verify where exactly key purchases are happening. Which channel is an, let's say, inspirational channel, and which channel is a so-called deal closer. So where do consumers start the journey with you as a brand, and where do they end and really purchase? So these are for me the key, this is the key information to find out. Once you know that, and you have your information from marketing mix modeling, and you know what type of product, via which channel, via which age band, for example, is most interesting, so several factors to take into account. Once you have this information, then you also know what type of tool you need, and you also know whether you need a tool which is focusing more on the offline data attribution and onboarding, or one which is purely focused on online. Because if you know that most of the inspiration happens online, of course, this is your focus area. So this you need to find out first, and then the automation part is also very tricky. So again, you could work with an external consultant potentially for a certain period of time to ensure you have the right ecosystem in place, and then you already have a working setup.
Yeah, especially the fact that you have several markets that you oversee. I think it also varies very severely how many touch points you need as a consumer before you take the purchase decision. So it might be different in Germany than in, let's say, in Asia, right? Can you say a few words about this?
Yes, it's actually very different, because the German, but also French and UK consumer, they're very conservative. So here more touch points are needed, and also the duration between the touch points is much longer. In Asia, it's more mobile heavy. It's more ad hoc, quick purchases, especially also for high price products. And then if you look at the Middle East, again, it's, let's say there's a very strong dynamic also to have quick purchases for luxury products. So this is also something we always need to take into account. And also what you need to take into account is the sort of, let's say, city-focused countries. So in a country like UK, most of the transactions happen in London. In France, it's Paris. In Germany, it's a very cluttered environment. You have high purchase power in a city like Hamburg, but also in Berlin, in Munich. So it's not as easy as in other cities. So this is something to find out, and also always keep on optimizing and researching.
Yeah. Right now in Germany, many of us are discussing the impact that we are seeing. We've been discussing live shopping, for example. When will it be adopted in Germany? A couple of years ago, there were trials by TikTok and some other companies to introduce live shopping. We don't really see live transactional feeds from Facebook or Instagram yet, but this has been going on in Brazil, in US, and other markets. We are now seeing that TikTok announced to go live with their TikTok shop in Germany soon. How do you see this in terms of social shopping? Where are we headed?
I would have thought that the adoption of social commerce and social shopping in general is much quicker than it actually is today, because I was surprised that we are still very much conservative around that topic. On the other hand, I also have to say that when I analyze the audience profiles of TikTok, for example, they're not as qualitative as on other channels. So the question is really, what unique benefit, what call to action can you give to your audience? What is really the event happening during the live shopping event? If it's just like a normal purchase day, then they can just go to the website. So it needs to be something limited, something discounted perhaps, or any other goodie which you can offer on top. And when I look at the likes of like Alibaba, or especially in Asia, I think also there's a very high adoption for social commerce. And in the luxury industry, there's really high-priced products being sold in seconds. I've seen also some case studies from Louis Vuitton. And this is really interesting, but I believe that the really gamification aspect is pretty high, and this is often more a theme in Asia than it is, for example, in Germany or Europe.
Yeah, and talking about gamification also, I think it really depends on the segment of the product, like what you're selling and how your customer group looks like. And they let's say some segments of customers might be relatively shopping online. Some of them are maybe more the ones that you described at the beginning of the talk. They like to feel, touch, and experiment with the product before they go and make the purchase decision. But I think most importantly, we have to find a way to understand the preferences and give them like also tailor-fit marketing campaigns. Like, do you have maybe best practices? Let's say you've analyzed the data and you've analyzed which platforms are relevant for you, and then how do you go about creating campaigns, working with creatives, working with performance marketing teams, to have what's the success recipe of a successful campaign?
I wish I could say what's the success recipe for social commerce, because here I haven't found the perfect recipe yet. When I look around case studies and industry trends, I often see it very much based around a special collaboration. So a creator, for example, which can really support in driving a certain hype. And then you also have already a certain follower base dialing in and doing the live stream. So this definitely helps to really support this hype creation, which you need in order to have a limited offer, limited timing, and then you use channels like YouTube, for example. YouTube is something I also focused on strongly in the past, and it performs very well. And here again, I've seen a higher audience quality actually than on TikTok, and also amongst older audience profiles than on TikTok. So this, I think, is really key. Then the performance marketing section, also here, I think there are great ways to track. So if you define the correct KPIs upfront, and you know, for example, is this a branding event? So you look into the pre and post brand lift or brand awareness, for example, amongst a certain audience base. If you know you only invite mostly, for example, let's say a younger audience base in order to raise awareness amongst this audience, then you can really check if this has brought anything to you in terms of brand awareness or not. And then other brands take it as a pure additional purchase channel. And here also you can then directly see or compare usual commerce experiences versus the social commerce. And you will see if this is really driving any extra or if you would have sold the same amount during a limited edition launch on the website. So I think for other industries can be more exciting or very exciting, because in the luxury industry, you always need to look around brand safety, brand awareness tactics. So it's not as much adapted as in other industries.
Yeah. And also, I think purpose is becoming more and more important, especially you mentioned Alpha. I'm not very familiar with their preferences, but Gen Z, for example, over 90% of them, as far as I know, look at purpose behind a brand. So whether or not they're sustainable, 1 in 4 even go as far as boycotting entire brands if they have the feeling they don't stand for the values they stand for, like as a person. So I guess this applies to many different age groups as well. But I think I want to hear about your opinion on purpose. Like, what do brands need to pay attention to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, purpose is a big topic, and I see this already during millennials in terms of age segment, and then Gen Z even more. And there are various analyses you can do as a brand to see also which attributes a certain audience segment is associating with you as a brand. Are these the right attributes or not? Are you currently associated with sustainability, with heritage, or any other values which might be key for you? And then you need to ensure that whatever you want to change is really true to who you are as a brand. Because once you've defined yourself, you can't just switch overnight or rechange your personality. It's something you need to really, in order to make your audience also accept that, you need to really work on that and need to really pull through for several years in order to stick true to your own values and ensure that these are transmitted internally, externally, within your brand communication and so on. At the same time, when I see the hype around brands like Temu or Shine, I'm also a bit, let's say, questioning the purpose, because these are very fast-paced fashion brands which don't sell at a sustainable value, and still these have a strong hype amongst these audience segments. So we need to, I think, be also realistic. And yes, there is a trend, and yes, I really, really believe in purpose. I think that's a key foundation to everything we do. But we also need to be aware that there are certain audience segments which do also favor brands with purpose, but they make compromises.
Yeah.
And this is also very clear.
It's interesting that you said that, because we've also did an analysis with HDE and some others, taking a look at the preferences of the consumers recently. And there's increasing focus on secondhand items, even like people much more frequently gifting secondhand items to people they love. So that was for me something surprising this year. And there's a prognosis that next year it will be even higher. Probably the benefit is, as you said, like the market has not recovered to below like before Corona levels. At the same time, there's this e-commerce was all about price sensitivity, availability, convenience. The rise of Temu and Shein, for me, like two things. Like, of course, it's a new business model, factory to customer, and then again, how price sensitive they are is like, and I feel like it doesn't match, because on the one hand, we are trying to be sustainable, we are trying to have this purpose, but at the same time, there are millions of packages being shipped to Germany. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, especially in terms of secondhand, I would be curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, secondhand is also a strongly growing segment for fashion, for luxury. And I really like the value behind to say you're passing on an item between different generations, and especially the likes of Hermes and also Chanel. They really managed to establish these iconic values, you could say. So yes, there's a strong trend, and yes, there's also more demand for, let's say, cross-generational products, because with that already you associate yourself to, let's say, your family, your background. Maybe it's a product which was only available in a certain country and you wear it in a different one. Yeah. So you can show something about your origin. And as we become more diverse as a society, and many of us love also having certain cultural roots and aspects also to talk about, I think it's a beautiful way to also show who you are, because this is what fashion really, really does for many. It's like a outside reflection of who you are inside. So it is really interesting. And with the likes of Vestiaire Collective, for example, and the others, which also now have, let's say, better processes to verify originality, which was usually a bit of a tricky part. Now it has also improved. There is indeed a strong demand. And this is also something when your products, as a brand, your products are even on demand amongst the second or third or fourth generation. This is when you really, let's say, made it amongst the top brands, because it also means you have a strong value in terms of long-term investment as your products. And customers are also more willing to purchase because they know your products are not decreasing in value over time.
Yeah. It's interesting because we had Kleinanzeigen in the podcast recently, and Iskra was describing, head of brand at Kleinanzeigen, she was describing that in each household in Germany, there's up to 2,000 euros to be made on a secondhand platform. And she was also talking about this. You mentioned cross-generational products. You either want to keep a product, or you think like, hey, I could be monetizing my entire cupboard, in a different way. So I think we'll see more interesting things coming up this year. I'm very curious to see that. You've been also very close to influencer marketing, I believe, and I'm curious about how you see this user-generated content market going forward.
Mm-hmm. So there's also an interesting trend here, which we have observed for, I think now maybe 1 year, 2 years across different industries. It's to focus even stronger onto maybe more niche creators, you could say. So someone who is leaving an impact, driving an impact amongst a certain audience base. So whether it's an architect, chef cook, an outdoor lover who has a certain hobby. I think this is really which is driving authenticity. And here we're back on purpose as well. So it supports
and
also
trust
your...
also.
Exactly, yeah. Someone who's not changing their daily and their values in order to fit to a brand, but brands are focusing on these type of creators to emphasize an angle which is not as strongly maybe rooted or inherited in their DNA yet. So this is for the likes of, if we look at Patagonia, for example, also super smart how to drive further this outdoor aspect. Or if you look at the chef cook, with how much passion they're running the restaurant and the detailed thoughts which are flowing into every dish. This level of detail, prestige, and accuracy is also something which is often a good match for many brands. So there's a trend to shift more towards these type of niche influencers from big names who have been promoting several brands in one day. So you need to really be authentic and rather do less but better.
I think this is an excellent tip because even I can, listening to you, I can relate to it right away as a person because I have my own influencers that I follow. I don't follow anyone, so it has to match in terms of my priorities of life, how I want to live my life. And at the same time, I don't want to feel like someone is just randomly, blindly trying to sell me stuff and get commission. I want to be part of the game. I want to support someone, make some money, but if it helps me as a customer, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I personally, for example, also like when someone is very far away from my daily.
Yeah.
So I don't know, someone who's climbing 4 different mountains per month. I think it's great. I would love to do that as well. But it also supports you in your daily and challenges you face because it's a completely different environment. But this person is really pushing themselves to the limit. Yeah. And we go to the office and we can also inspire our teams and also go to the limit. So for ourselves and how we drive our own agenda, let's say. So I think that's very inspiring.
We talked about purpose, but we haven't really, we've touched upon community without naming it as such. The winner of the Shop Usability Award this year was a company called Schuster. They're a family-owned company since 4 generations. I mention them in my keynotes sometimes because I think it's very interesting how they support the sense of community. You can buy skiing equipment and all kinds of other things, but they have, for example, specific events for women after work skiing events or something. Very, very niche-y, but you feel like, hey, those are like-minded people. I have a hobby, I have an experience, and anything along the way, it's almost inevitable that you would buy it from them anyway because they're supporting you with your lifestyle, in a way that there's this fatigue among e-commerce customers that are used to just e-commerce websites looking the same almost everywhere. Just like people are really going for experiences. Would you say the same?
Yeah, absolutely agree. There's a strong trend towards one-to-one experiences, and also there's a very strong trend to not to talk about clients anymore, but talk about communities. So it's about what you offer to your community. It's about the sort of fan base also you establish as a brand, and this is really key.
Yeah. Also, talking about strong brands, I've given the example of IKEA, and that there's a lot of changes going on, but IKEA prevails, and they've been investing some money to also switch their omnichannel strategy a little bit because of changing consumer behavior. I mean, obviously they're very much focused on the physical presence, but I think they're a really good example of how brand loyalty can help you through the hard times, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so they just recently presented some very good numbers. So I think really investing in that brand, investing in your community is one of the takeaways.
Yeah, and I also think they making it even easier for the consumers to shop, because IKEA used to be only outside in outside areas, like half an hour ride. And now, I live in Milan during the week, and I just wanted to order like 2 small items. And I thought, okay, am I gonna really go outside 30 minutes? But there are these sort of mini shops where you just go, order. You can't touch the product. Sometimes there's some examples of the bestsellers, but you just go, you order, you have consultation, and you can leave again. And this is like 5 minutes away from your home. So they also have this sort of more consultation concept in city centers now, which was I think, really needed to come closer to the consumer and also be more mindful of their time.
Yeah, we have it here in Hamburg, in Altona. There's an IKEA branch. I mean, when I was doing my master's degree in Hamburg 2012, I remember I didn't have much money, so I had to take the bus to IKEA, and every single time, 45 minutes, and just transporting all these things. Now it's just 5 minutes away from where I live. It's a huge difference, and that is also tied to a certain strategy. It didn't happen for no reason. It happened because, like, also the way we go to city centers is changing. I will give you an example. I was looking for shoes. I have shoe size 46, and I went to just visit the high street. Went to visit some street shops, like also big brands, like Adidas, Nike, and stuff like that, because I was looking for running shoes. But the problem is, either they don't have my size or they don't have all the colors. Like, there's endless aisle in e-commerce. You get inspired by what you see in the product, and you're supposed to find out your size in e-commerce. But I actually wanted to take a look at how it will feel, because if you're going for a longer run, you want to test it out, right? So I see the street and like high street shops moving more towards just like very simple, a couple of products, not even having lots of assortment, like lots of inventory. But is it really serving this experience of touching the product? And my experience was like, I thought, okay, I could have saved my time 1.5 hours just walking through. It's also kind of annoying. It can get annoying carrying all these things. But what's the actual ideal experience in your opinion? Are we really gonna keep these high street shops? How will they evolve in the future?
Yeah, I mean, in the old days, we always said that e-commerce is an extension of offline. And now it's often the other way around, that the retail stores are an extension of what you can see online, because often you can customize, you can pre-order, you can go on the wait list. Yeah. There's so many good features, where often in stores, when it was super packed, especially at the likes of Adidas, it took like 20 minutes before you had a client advisor. So this is, I think, a trend or behavior which is shifting. At the same time, this, from my point of view, very much depends on the type of industry, because in the more high-price segments, it's actually the exact opposite. So you invest more into the store itself. Some are using the stores, and especially the fact that they are like in super prime positions, right, on the high streets, like if you have Bond Street, for example, Maximilianstraße in Munich, wherever, like really high street premium environments. Here they're often using it as an event space. Some brands have an apartment above the shop to host top clients, in the likes of Paris, for example. So it has become more like a 360-degree experience for a brand to express yourself towards your consumers. So in the higher price segments, it's actually the exact opposite development.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I didn't know about this apartment. Like you can stay, just go for the shopping experience and actually stay with them.
Also, without shopping, you can just go and stay there. Often it requires a certain minimum basket in terms of spend, which you have generated in the past. So you enter sort of like a top segment. But some other stores are having more and more artwork, for example, in the stores, and they have more store cocktails and so on, just to really open up a brand environment.
Yeah. Want to also ask you about personalization, because we've talked about the rising Chinese giants like Temu, Shein. They utilize AI-based personalization based on your consumer behavior. Maybe they also have different approach to data. They definitely send out, for example, mailings where you get similar products that you might like, which we don't see everywhere. We see it in some brands, but how do you see personalization evolving, especially given the competition?
There needs to be a good balance between sort of over communication, which is often hyper personalized, but it's just too much and too spammy, let's say, and a very personalized recommendation, which is a good match. And we do have these insights most of the time. I think internally, most companies know exactly the consumer customer journey. They know exactly the time window between the different purchases. They know what type of product a customer is most likely to purchase as the next one. So if you use this data wisely, it makes sense. And also consumers are appreciating that very much. At the same time, my advice would be to always test and learn and say, even though the chances are 80% that one person is going to shop exactly the same type of product as the previous purchasers, always try to bring in an innovation, try to bring in new products and tweak a bit the typical customer journey, but don't exhaust it too much.
Yeah. How about AI? We had to drop this buzzword also because AI seems to be disrupting many industries as we speak. We've seen Sora producing incredible videos that look very realistic. Many out there are also discussing whether or not we will be able to trust the look and feel of an AI avatar. Just this morning, I was leaving home and my wife was watching a AI-based tutorial, and she's like, "Oh, I can't listen to this bot anymore." It's just repeating the same thing. And in general, the perception seems to be that human beings trust other human beings, but not the machines yet. How do you see AI disrupting the e-commerce industry?
I see it so far very much being used or focusing on efficiency gains. So if you look at translations, content sequencing, personalized content, whether you make your assets fit to the right time of the day, the weather, the city background, the type of consumer who is purchasing your product, different generations. So here I see a lot of efficiency gains we can generate. But it's also interesting because we used to say we trust, or maybe many used to say, I trust humans, but only to a certain extent. And now we say we don't trust, or we trust AI, but also only to a certain extent. So who do you trust more? It's always a bit like, what do you have, and in which direction are we moving? So I feel what is key now is to again ensure we have the right headcount in companies in order to break down boundaries, to educate more, to upskill, reskill. We all need to be aware because we can't avoid the trend in any case. And we need to see it as a big chance for us to automate processes and really drive efficiencies. And whenever we know we want to share more insights in an organization, we all know exactly how it is. Or maybe in 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, there's a different topic and urgency coming in between. We can now use AI in order to be even quicker and have the right information at hand in order to make educated decisions. So I think this is how we should be using it. Using the use of chatbot for me is still a bit rudimentary in some cases. I think you can use it for very basic answers yet. And also I've seen some funny case studies where then the chatbot was going a bit viral or too personal and didn't want to end the conversation, for example, and started doing some random recommendations. So you also need to be very careful of that as a brand.
I don't know if this is even true, but I saw a TikTok that most of the sex channels that you would call, not you, but someone, they're already running on AI-based, so avatars, just giving people similar responses. I guess this is a segment like the Turing test. Many customers don't even realize they're talking to an AI bot, So might be coming up sooner or later that we will be talking to. Google also presented this in one of their events recently, that AI can call up a restaurant and make a reservation, and the person doesn't even realize. They can even assume local accents and everything. Yeah, this is probably coming. For us in e-commerce, it's always an efficiency game, as you mentioned. Also, how can we use it to have a better business outlook, right? So I totally agree with you. I want to end on a personal note here. I've taken a look at your resume and like your history, how you as a leader also have climbed up the success ladder, let's say. Maybe you can share a little bit about your top learnings along the way. What made you, from your perspective, successful? What was helpful to get to the stage that you're in today?
Yeah, there's, I would say, start with being confident in what you do, and also sometimes when there's an opportunity and you're not 100% aware if you have all the right skills, just do it anyway. Just push yourself, try it out, be confident. I always say be sometimes a bit overly confident, because otherwise you don't usually get the same chance or an equal good chance and opportunity twice. So take the moments, and also really connect yourself with mentors. So you need to have a good network around yourself. I think it's healthy if career advice is not so much, let's say, connected to your partner, to your friends, to your social cycle. You really need a strong business network. So whether you have a personal coach, whether you have a mentor, I always recommend having an internal and also external mentor. So one within the company and one outside. I had a mentor who was the CFO at one of my previous jobs, and the finance team is usually very far away, unfortunately, from the marketing. But that way, I chose someone who I don't interact with on a daily level. So that is also helpful to get advice. So you can also say an external mentor, so someone who is potentially already there where you want to be. Because that is a key challenge, especially for women in leadership, is that we are still missing role models, and especially role models who have strong personal skills and business skills. Because it's always easy if you say, I neglect my personal life, my family life in order to get somewhere. But for me, it's aspirational when I see someone who is also ticking the boxes on a personal level. So this is something I can really recommend, and don't be scared to ask for support. Don't be scared to raise your hand when there's something unclear, because it's only natural. And then also what I learned is to always ask for feedback. So not only your manager, but really on the 360-degree level, whether it was a meeting or a presentation you gave, and there's always good advice you get in return. Often very unexpected, often also something you need to digest first, so you don't take it personal. But it's important in order to grow. And now the higher you climb up the ladder, the less feedback you have, unfortunately. So I also always tell my team members when we have the one-to-ones or personal development sessions.
The feedback just gets shared with other people about you.
I just say, please, this is a two-way conversation, right? So you also give me feedback, and it can also be critical. I don't just want to talk about you. We need to talk about our relationship and how we're managing together in a business. So this is also very key for me, to always seek feedback, and also very important, own your space and also ask for visibility, because I hate it when I just prepare something or invest a lot of time into something and then I'm not able to present it myself. And I think that was more the case a few years ago when we still had a lot of very conservative and hierarchical leadership. Now, in many organizations, it has become more dynamic. So I started joining board meetings at a very young age as the only woman, but I was there to present. And that way you learn also being challenged on a very tough level, but it's good in order to grow. And that also grows your personal portfolio in terms of experiences. And you dare to do more and more and go further and further. And these are really tips I would like to share.
Maria, I truly love this conversation. Thank you so much for your time and truly, truly helpful tips. I'm pretty sure our audience will love this episode. And thanks for taking the time today. I think you were on a run doing a couple of podcasts probably today. We truly appreciate it. See you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. See you soon.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the E-commerce Germany News Podcast. If you did, make sure to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and follow us on our channels. Feel free to also recommend this podcast to your contacts and friends that may want to know more about e-commerce, digital marketing, and success stories. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and see you on the next episode.